welcome to Inside Personal Growth Podcast. Deep dive with us as we unlock the secrets to personal development, empowering you to thrive. Here, growth isn't just a goal, it's a journey. Tune in, transform, and take your life to the next level by listening to just one of our podcasts. Hey, well, welcome back to Inside Personal Growth. This is Greg Voisin, the host of Inside Personal Growth. And joining me, where are you joining me from, Nick?
I am in Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I must say, when I began this journey down the road of sleep, I never knew that I'd end up in Australia, in the UK, in South America. So I'm meeting people all over the world.
Yeah, definitely, because sleep fitness, which Nick wrote a book, Nick Stewart, MBA, CSSC. What does that stand for, Nick?
It's one of the rare certifications in sleep. So it's a certified sleep science coach.
Okay.
It's good till like 2025. After that, you can't hire me.
Okay. Well, we got you for another almost 2 years. So I appreciate you being on Inside Personal Growth. And we were commenting before, and I'm going to let the people know a little bit about you from your bio. You say on Amazon, when you go look for the book, and I encourage all my listeners to go out and just type in sleep fitness. It says this book won't bore you. It's not going to put you to sleep. It won't waste your time, and it isn't filled with useless junk. And I would say that's absolutely true, Nick. Did you want to add another one?
I'm going to delete some parts at the end of the book and release it, but I think you're right. I say, and the other thing that I would say is that for your listeners, for an entertainment value, it's already gotten me into trouble.
Awesome.
Rick, I've already upset somebody as of today because of something that's in the book. So
you know what?
So trust me, the rest of the sleep books, they're all very politically correct, and no one wants to step on anyone's toes, and that's not what this book is doing at all.
Well, that's good to know. Now, for my listeners, so that you know a little bit about Nick, he already told you that he was a CSSC. He's a certified sleep coach who helps busy professionals improve their sleep and perform better at work while having more time for their professional lives. Look, all of us know we have gadgets that measure our sleep, and I know that I have a little dog that gets me up twice a night, and I get interrupted sleep, and it's not the best thing in the world, but we all have situations where this happens. So moreover, he's trained clients to master their sleep as a significant health transformation, getting them more adequate downtime and unleashing a newfound vibrancy and energy in their work and home life. And I would say, look, when you have issues sleeping, your energy levels really drop, and we're going to get into that. As a professional level transformational coach, a year before his run-in with the sleep devil, he integrated sleep health into the foundation of clients seeking internship at Fortune 500 companies. He's often baited for seats offered at Google with less than 1% chance of attaining an internship. Still, with sleep at the foundation of their performance, Nick saw 3 of his mentees succeed in reaching that Google opportunity 3 years straight. That was the start of an observation about the forgotten powerhouse high-quality sleep fitness that can produce across every area of a person's life. Nick's journey to overcome his sleep troubles was a challenging one, but he refused to give up and overcoming his insomnia. Through the years of research and testing, he developed a powerful strategy that helped him get the rest he needed and pave the way for others to benefit from his experience. Well, you got an inspiring story, Nick. And
well, let me add a couple things to that, Greg. One is for people who are like, how did you get into this? I almost forgot, oh my God, years and years ago, I'm coaching these young adults who want to get these Fortune 500 internships. And after a while, I sort of would be given the high performers on the IT floors who were probably going to get the seat. And in each case, they trim their sleep to try to be able to go to the part-time job, to go to the daytime training, to go see their girlfriend, to then have family dinner, to then do all the homework. And in each case, their managers all pegged me and was like, Greg's looking a little pale the last couple of weeks, and I'm less confident about sending him to Google. And the funny thing is I sat down with my coaching group, and one of the guys came in. I looked at him and was like, oh my God, this guy's pale as a ghost. And I basically said, everybody go to the tech lab. James, sit down. And back then, I was really sort of a planner, right? Like, how do we plan and schedule your day so you can perform at a high level? And there's a great book, if you haven't read it, it's great. It's called The Power of Full Engagement. Have you read that book?
Yeah, that's an old book, yeah.
It should be required for all companies. But I basically was applying that concept, right? Like, where do we find little rejuvenation spots? And so I literally, out of having no idea what I was doing, just grabbed the first book on a bookshelf that had sleep in it, started using it, and helped these guys get their sleep fit. And in weeks, they were good to go, and they ran with it. I never thought about it ever again. Like, just never thought about it. The second thing that I was going to mention is that over the past 6 months, I'd say, some of my work has become more specific. So there is a focus more on emergency repair. I have sleep terrors. This is something I can't bear anymore, versus being like, yeah, my sleep quality is not that good. I would like it to be better. And so I'm taking more people who are like IT professionals because I'm comfortable with them, nurses, healthcare professionals, and anyone else who's just working insanely long hours. And so there's a repair component to it. And then there's the let's get it repaired, and then let's get it awesome. And we can talk about that in a bit. The second thing I'd mention is that in doing a year and a half ago, and I was like, I gotta start doing some practice coaching sessions. It's been some years. What I found was I would do these one-off sessions with clients from all over the world. And I'd be like, yeah, if this little strategy session works out in 4 weeks, write me a testimonial. That's all that'd be great. And I would follow up with them. And Greg, I wasn't ready for the response. Mm-hmm. It was that in fact, there's a testimonial I'm not even sure I can use because it seems so over the top that maybe AI wrote it. And this guy's message came through with kind of represents several people, which was like, Nick, oh my God. I was engaged all day, which is what I wanted.
Right.
But then I got home and I had the capacity to be engaged with my kids and my wife. This is amazing. Yeah. So I was like, it is? Really? That was Greg, I always sort of imagined myself as a repairman, right? Bring in the car. This is the oil pan's busted. We'll put one on there and then we'll send you out. It's really evolving.
Let's discuss it because look, the listeners that are out there listening right now, they all listen to my podcast, and then they obviously listen to a lot of other podcasts. And in many months, I've been listening to, Dr. Pete Artia. You listen to Tim Ferriss. You listen to all these people that are talking about, hey, I'm going to endorse this bed that makes it cooler on my side, or you're going to take melatonin, or you're going to do all these various things. And the environment in which we're in. So there's so many elements here, since Apple and all these people started measuring how we sleep. I'm curious as to your take on this, because the reality is prior to probably 10 years ago, none of this existed. It just didn't exist. It started existing when people started having sleep terrors, right? It's like, man, I can't even, and when I go into my room, I'm just so afraid I don't even want to go to sleep because, I got so much to do, right? Or they're burned out, right? So this question is it's a twofold question. The first part is, what do you think about this progression in the last 10 years? Obviously, you're a coach as a result of it. 10 years ago, you weren't thinking about being a sleep coach, that for certain. And then secondly, where is this really all headed for everybody? And what are some of the practical things that you could tell our listeners, like right now?
Yeah. So the first thing around the metrics part is, and I warn my clients up front, like, I'm going to be honest with you, like, even if you don't want to hear it. So the answer really is mixed bag. I've had experience where I've created the training where in the first 2 weeks, we're doing that data collection using the metrics and whatnot. Some of them are really problematic, Greg. If you're not spending $300 or more, you're getting crappy data. On top of that, for some people, right, they're coming into this experience uncomfortable and upset, and now we're going to track their crappy data, which all it says is what they already know, which is this isn't good. And so for some people who are anxious, they don't like it. So I'm right now sort of like, get to know the person, figure out what the issue is, and then figure out, do we need to track certain things, and or should we not be tracking certain things? I've seen articles that go back and forth about it. I think one of the great advantages about tracking the metric is this, and you say, what's going to happen in the future? I think there's going to be a huge push for a metric called heart rate variability.
Well, it's already there. One of my clients owns source.io, and on your iPhone or your Android, you put your finger on the camera and it measures HRV inside with people working in companies. So is this a push day? Is it a rest day? Is it a whatever? The whole HRV thing is like gone crazy, right? But the reality is, you said in the book, and you have a chapter, the secret to sleep is that there isn't any secret. And I'm not going to push you on this, but I'm going to say, okay, so then why? So why is everyone so damn caught up in what the secret is? Take more melatonin, lift more weights, exercise, look at your chart. I mean, what's the deal here, dude?
Well, let me give you two answers. One, I'm going to finish the answer you originally asked, is where is this all going?
Yeah.
Sadly, Greg, and I've got the credit card debt stubs. I'm happy to send them to you if you want to, maybe make some donations. But for 6 years, this is not a joke. This stuff is starting to come out. I tested every energy and product I could get my hand on, and my closet became an insane catastrophe. And I was working with a business partner, and so we were like, let's set up a database, spend 20 minutes a day categorizing this stuff. Greg, I got to a little over 81 products, and I hardly had anything that showed being effective.
Ooh.
And I estimate it's probably over 100. So you're looking at around a 90 to 95% total fail rate in terms of what the products are. Now, you told me to bring things. I don't normally wear these glasses, but here's a product that might last. This is from a company called Swanwick, and they're the best it's called blue light filtering glasses that you can get. And believe it or not, they're not the most expensive. So for those of you out there, I just did a forward for a guy for another book, very interesting, called The Light Doctor. So light plays a big factor into your sleep, and we'll get into that about the daytime. But I just wanted to show you guys those and put my regular glasses back on. And in the future, geez, like you said, there's so much coming in. And just the other day, I read the projections. I think we're in 2 to 3 years, the sleep industry, the economy is going to be around $6 billion.
So look, there obviously, for all these people that jump in, just like electric bikes where it's 25, 30 billion and everybody wants to buy it, there's got to be something driving it. So at the core, when you meet with these clients who want to get better night's rest, what are the 3 or 4 components that are missing? As you said, there is no one size fits all here. Okay, I get that. Everybody's got a little bit of a different problem. But
yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, and you say introducing a little anarchy into sleep solutions. Can you help the listeners either find a balance between trying some structured sleep plan or allowing for flexibility in some kind of personalized plan? What is it that you actually do, and what are the common characteristics that a certified sleep coach like yourself is saying, hey, look, I took your intake. Here's some of the things you're doing that you should either stop doing or you should modify?
Absolutely. So I think to answer your first question about the secret part, there's another coach from India and I who are going to do a seminar on meditation to help with sleep. And we couldn't be more unalike, except for when we shared with each other our stories. It was like, oh my God, we're like twins. And his story is, I think, an answer to your question, which is what we call the pill trap. He spent months, if not over a year, going doctor to doctor. Where is the pill? Where is the pill? I think society-wise, we're still in the medication solves all things kind of world. And that drives that, like, well, there must be something I can find that will fix it. But with sleep, it's so much messier. I think people wanted, like, we talked about melatonin, and we can break that down a little bit because I've got mixed thoughts on that. People thought, oh, well, if I just take melatonin, I'll sleep. Well, it's like, there's no research that says the melatonin helps you fall asleep faster. There's no research that says melatonin keeps you asleep while your dog wakes you up, Greg. So that can't be it, right? So there's multiple forces, biochemical, hormonal, and then we talked about light a little bit, where they're all intersecting, kind of like when people studied the atom and they like got way down to the bottom and they finally found like, oh, there's no core. It's just a vibrating circle. And I think that's helpful to think about with sleep. And it's also a way to give in. And I think that's part of my objective with the book, was to give some people some concepts where they could relax down if they were in an emergency. So like, for example, chapter 3 is called "The Body is Designed to Stay Awake for a Few Days." People are like,
I know this is an off-the-wall question, but I have a lot of questions for you. We won't get through them all, but it doesn't matter. We're exposing my audience to something that's very important in your book, which is going to help
episode 2
answer.
Greg, episode 2.
So here's my thought. Look, in the industrialized world, with the fast pace that we all live in, computers, AI, you name it, fast cars, whatever. Yet you go to this, Dan Buettner was on here, and it's the blue zones. And you really look at these people that are living to be 100, longevity, because in the end, and you look at the sleep that basically is purported that happens, it's completely different than in our country. So if you take a little island in Greece where somebody is, you know what their keys are, what they eat, how much they exercise during the day, which is usually a ton, how much community they're involved in, what their spirituality is, right? Start to look at these factors. In other words, am I spiritual? Am I meditating? Am I doing yoga? Am I doing whatever? Or am I just a guy who's out in Greece picking grapes at the end of the day, and I work really hard, and at the end of the day, I sleep like a log, right? And so these people now are 100 years old, right? And you're thinking to yourself, we live in this world that is so effed up that everybody's running around like a chicken with their head cut off. And then at the end of the day, they're going, I'm so amped up, I can't sleep. Yeah, number one, you didn't exercise enough. You didn't get enough done, meaning you didn't really actually have output, and you're not tired enough. I had a guy that was on here this morning. You'll get this. And his wife tells him, because he's run 100-mile events and triathlons and all this, she says, please go exercise because you're a better husband and you sleep better when you exercise. So, you know, in other words, his wife gave him a prescription, said, just go out and just keep running. Just run, because otherwise you're a nervous wreck. Right?
And just for your listeners, she gave him one of the top 3 activities proven to impact the quality of sleep.
Running.
By a long shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big time.
How about cycling? Anything?
Yeah, I think there's some like some exercises are better for a certain phase of sleep, some are for the other. It's the kind of thing that I would look up with somebody, to
But
figure out.
There used to be this thing, Nick, and then we'll get back to you answering the question.
Yeah.
Would you rather be physically tired or mentally tired? I'm just paraphrasing here. And I will tell you, at the end of the day, I'd rather be physically tired any day of the day than I would mentally tired.
Yeah. We're going to have to circle back on that because
you don't have enough time to address that one. Huh?
Well, one of the things, like I was saying, with some of this feedback, even the guy who wrote the foreword to the book started giving me these like signals that excessive energy was still there. So when you say that to me, Greg, I've talked to a couple of high performing guys, big corporate guys, and I say, do you sleep so that each night you fill the tank up and the next day you use the gas and then you refill the next night? Or have you gotten to the point where you're sleeping consistently day by day, week by week, month by month, that like a bond, like a good investment vehicle, you've got an excess of, let's say, $2,000 in physical energy that you've gotten from sleep? Well, what if the next day you only use 500 of it? Well, now you're in an excess of 1,500. You're starting the day with a capacity for energy. This is why I started going, geez, this is like a competitive advantage in today's super competitive marketplace, to be able to have that.
Well, look, if you are not the hero, because you said you don't need a hero, but the fact is this book, and like I said, you're not going to find anything useless. You're going to only find useful content in this book. And you said in your chapter, you don't need he's a hero. You emphasize results over searching for a hero to solve the sleep issues. Well, there's people out there all day long that are going to doctors to get a pill, or they're going to sleep studies, or they're getting CPAP machines because they snore, or whatever the hell. I mean, there's so much of this. How can individuals take ownership? This is the key, right? It's like I'm sitting out here listening to Nick. How do I get your book, take ownership of my sleep fitness, and journey without relying on these quick fixes or external validation from my Apple Watch, which tells me I didn't get enough sleep every night because I woke up twice with my puppy to let him out and go potty, right?
The answer that I thought I would have a year ago when I started interviewing guys on podcasts that came from the neurotechnology product design world, I tried to trick them and be like, so Greg, if you had to pick a product to give to your family that's not the one that you're selling, what would it be? And the two brightest guys, one who has been in the sleep coaching industry for like 40 years working with teams, and he's like, do you know who Phil Jackson is? I'm like, yeah, he's the most winning coach in NBA history. He's like, oh yeah, he called me one night and was like, we're stuck at the airport. How do we get these guys to sleep? Like, these guys know what they're talking about. And both of their answers?
What?
Education.
Education.
I was shocked. And I've come over time to, and I'm working kind of on a series, is that there's a huge amount of assumptions and what I would call old world knowledge about sleep that's become outdated. But most people think like, oh, I know enough about sleep. The 7 to 8 hours, they think they know, but it's like, no, there's some things that have changed. In fact, that are so important that they might inform how you then, to your point, make a plan that makes sense for them now that they're informed about what that is and what's going on. So that is like, I hate the answer because I want to come up with this awesome, sophisticated, methodological answer about this. But it's really about like, are you just, as someone who wants to be an informed person in the world, are you exposing yourself just enough to get the education you need? You don't need to be a master, So like a lot of my clients, Greg, one of the rules that we have is, it's in the book, is stop reading about it. Stop it. This guy from Canada who gave me a review was like, well, I'm really glad I didn't read chapter 9 because I wouldn't have gotten through the book and I now understand all this stuff. And, and my point, and Michael Brin from BA Neuroscience, his point about the book, which was very nice of him, was that the information age happened, right? And it was like, oh my God, we're going to have answers to everything. And then it was like, oh my God, we don't really have any like boxes to put things in and categories, and things are actually kind of more confusing, so what are we going to do about that? And so like one of the things I think that I've really been, I guess, touched on a personal level is that some of the feedback about the book is that it's done that for people where they've gone, boy, I'm like a registered sleep whatever, they're like in an institution. And I had a lot of scattered information about sleep, but that chapter on X gave me like a little category, like a little vehicle where I went, oh, I can put that all in here now. Mm-hmm. And that's going to make my next part of my journey an easier step.
Yeah, you give people, well, I think what the book does is you give the people a lot of, not just information, but things that it certainly can work. And one of the things you say is that, that's why this book is a bit contrarian, because you say there is no perfect sleep. It's unattainable. That it's really more about consistent improvement is what you mentioned. So how can those listeners out there right now, and what recommendations would you have them for setting realistic sleep goals that avoid this perfectionism track? I will tell you, I know I was on earlier with a pre-interview, and I told the guy that I was 70 years old, and he goes, "You're 70?" And he goes, "You can't be 70." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you're from California. You just look great." And I was like, "Hey, I'm 70 years old. Believe me, trust me." He didn't believe me at all. And I said, as I've aged, okay, now this is, I sleep better. Now I know other people have said as they
tell me about
age,
that. Yeah, tell me about
worse. They sleep worse.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because you would probably say as a fitness coach, you probably get older people that go, "I can't sleep. I wake up at midnight and I'm taking a pee, or I'm doing whatever it is," right? And here's what I would say, and I'm not here to train or advise anybody. The first thing is that I always do my gratitudes in the morning and my gratitudes at night before I go to bed. I attempt to actually, from a light standpoint, move the light rheostat down like slowly. Now, I know this may sound weird, but it's what I do, okay? And from a comfort position, my wife and I sleep with 2 little dogs. So I have to position the dog, right? So that the dog isn't interrupting the sleep, but oftentimes I'll have to push her this way or whatever. But here's my point. I think when you're feeling at peace and you're feeling comfortable and you feel good about your life overall, and you're not worried about tomorrow, and you're not bringing tomorrow's into today, that literally when your head hits the pillow, the only thing you have in your life is grateful for everything that's around you, and you literally sleep better.
And if you want to
sounds silly, right?
No, because Greg, first of all, like half the time when I'm working with a client, I laugh at myself and go, "I can't believe this is the thing that we're gonna do," because it sounds silly, and it's like what you're talking about. But the thing that I was going to mention was that in terms of, like how do you balance things that are custom to you, Greg? Oh, I know what I was going to say, the biochemical thing. The gratitude stuff that you're doing, it releases oxytocin, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to sleep better.
No.
This is an argument that I make against racists, where I'm like, you having a hard time sleeping? Become a more compassionate person, because you'll sleep better based on the research.
Now there you hit on something, okay? I hope everybody heard what Nick just said, because the Dalai Lama has been saying this for years. You know, we got such a divisive world. The only thing that's really going to fix this is that we become more compassionate for one another and have more understanding. And I will tell you, the less resistance you put up to the world, the better your sleep is.
Absolutely.
The more resistance you put up to the world, the worse your sleep is. So when we're young and we're running and we have a young family, because I raised a young family, right? You go through this, hey, you're going to have a family, you got to make money, and you got to blah, blah, all these things you got to do. And so your mind is filled with all this stuff. And so when you go to sleep, no, you're not thinking about sleeping, you're thinking about all the stuff. And it's running around your brain. And I know the meditation people, because I'm a meditator, will say, you know, that's the monkey mind. Well,
that's the top 3 client issue.
The monkey mind?
They'll say it in different. I'll say it that way, but they'll say it in different ways. Like, hey, I think I'm repeatedly thinking constantly about maybe I'm in trouble at work, and it keeps going, and I'm in bed. You know,
right.
it might come out like that.
Let me ask you this: do you get clients that ever feel? How am I going to frame this question for you? They enter their sleep chamber, whatever it might be, bedroom, wherever, it doesn't matter. But they actually feel like somebody's going to smother them, or that they're not going to be able to make it through the night. They're actually so afraid that they can't sleep.
Yes,
they're afraid of some external something that's affecting their mental process. Then instead of actually sleeping, they get up and they go down and they go to their computer and they type on the keys, or they do whatever until they get tired enough that they walk their ass back up to bed and they put it in there and go to sleep. Is that a common thing?
Yeah, Greg, this is one of the reasons why, like, I don't like to make rules for people, but I only have like 2 program rules. The first one is no suffering in bed. So if they're doing the 6-week program with me, for that 6 weeks, and I've asked them, I said, tell me, when you walk by that bed at night, you know, before bedtime, and you see it, do you think to yourself, that is where I suffer? And this is where it gets emotionally upsetting. I can hear in their voice that the answer is yes, and that they're sad, and that it's upsetting. Doing that is a very violent, immediate ripcord pull to start decoupling your association with that bedroom being about sleep and suffering. I had one lady that I offered it to who helped me out with some business stuff, and I caught up with her like a month later, and she was like, Nick, oh my God, I had insomnia for 10 years. And then you told me no suffering in bed. So if it was like, I looked at the clock and I was like, shoot, I've been in here for 2 hours. I realized, oh, I'm suffering. I got to go hit the couch in the living room with a nice book on fiction and a candle, and just spend my time in a warm kind of way. And if I get tired, I go back, and you keep doing that. People think, oh my God, I'll have to do it 100 times. I've never met anyone that's had to do that 100 times ever.
Right.
You know? But to your point, yeah, it becomes an association of like, this is my doom space.
Well, yeah, it almost like a claustrophobic feeling. I don't know how to explain it, but I've had it, and I understand what it feels like. And it feels very confining, very challenging. Like, hey, you're lost. So you got to get up and do something just to get away from that. And you know, here's another thing. In chapter 8 of the book, you talk about this connection between daytime habits, nighttime sleep quality. So how does it that what we do during the day directly impact our ability to sleep at night? Because I think people, okay, hey, you could call it a habit, a routine. I've had tons of people on here talking about, you know, the guy from Stanford who's written all the books on tiny habits, right? So you look at it and go, hey, I have a habit. I exercise in the morning. I meditate. I do this. I go to work. I come back. I play with the kids. I watch a little TV, and then I go to bed. Okay. What are the habits that could actually help one change that they could change that would have the biggest super impact on their sleep?
That's easy, but let me give you a sneak answer to the how does day treat night.
Night.
This is one of those chapters where I had a guy who was a 20-year sleep technologist read the chapter and turn around and be like, that just gave me license, understanding, permission, embracement of when I get home from the night shift, I go outside in the woods and I'm with my dog and in the sun, and all of a sudden he realized like, oh, I'm working on my sleep right there. That's what's happening. So like biochemically, for example, in this, Greg, seriously, if you have a listener who's like knows, your listener might not have this problem, but if they know someone who has insomnia like I did, I can guarantee that if some professional had said to me, hey, Nick, just make sure that you get outside before 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Take a walk for 30 minutes in the sun. Don't stare at it, but let it come into your eyes. That will create the serotonin that magically will stay in your system until the sun goes down and converts into melatonin. Greg, I think that would have saved me 1.5 years of insomnia.
Great tip. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't get out in the sun in the morning. I know my wife and I walk our dogs every morning for almost 45 minutes. And usually the sun's up. I live in California, so we have a lot of sun. But the point is you're right. I mean, I think just being outdoors, period, is a big point. And that leads me to this. You were talking about just a few minutes ago, people that work night shifts or work irregular hours. I get it. That would have to be tough. I never did that whole graveyard thing. I'm not certain that I could. I'm sure I could adapt, and that's where I want to talk to you. How can they adapt the principles of fixing the day, because we have some out there that are listening, to improve their sleep despite these horrible non-traditional schedules? Nurses, doctors, guys that are working in factories, nighttime shifts, whatever it might be.
I think it's a 3-part thing. One is however much time you have between you getting off shift and then getting home and it's bedtime, that you're maximizing activities, thought processes that are going to really impact sleep quality. That's going to be different for everybody, right? That's where the custom part comes in. The second part is, do you have a sleep issue? Do you have a sleep problem that we need to look at for during the day when you are sleeping? So we need to get that fixed. And then lastly is, however much time you have before you have to start your shift again, can we come up with a more appropriate, lighter set of routines and activities that also maximize the sleep? And those things could be different for different people. Like one example is, and it's totally weird, I tested it. If you take a walk in the evening, like when the sun is going down, when you get home, your blood pressure's down.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, shouldn't it be up? I just went for this long walk, but it's a soothing, transitionary type of walk that does that. So I would say that, and that dovetails, Greg, it really well into your question about how and why do I balance this idea of custom routines with everything can't be custom, and you're absolutely right. So, for example, I was working with a guy with night terrors.
Yeah.
So I have a 6-week curriculum. I would never teach someone mindfulness meditation who's from the United States in week 1. They'd be like, what is this fruity meditating ashram crap? I would never do it. It's like in week 4 or 5 that I do it. But for him, it's mission critical number 1, right? It's to start to learn how to psychologically disassociate. How do we learn tools for when he has the night terrors? How do we build up his capacity for mindfulness meditation? That's like, we got to go there first, and then we can line up the blocks. So it's different with different people. You know, another guy just started talking to, I talked to you before. He kind of realized, shoot, I think I impulsively ruminate. I'm a ruminator. So for him, we looked at what are the best little tactics to help get the rumination down enough to help you sleep. Because this is, I've told other people, I'm not medically licensed to do this. It's not my job to do this, but I'm not here to figure out why Greg is anxious. Greg has come and gone, I need to sleep. So whatever we got to do to get me to sleep, that's fine. If you want to go to therapy and unpack your years with your parents in high school and why it's led to your anxiety, then go be it. But it's my job to supersede that and get you over it. Right?
I get it.
Makes
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
So a lot of the methods, a lot of the things that we do, they're the same person to person. It's just usually how much modification, specialization do we need to work on for that repair piece? And then what's a nice flow of building up from there? And those things are all the same. And I would say,
I think what you're doing though, Nick, is you're just even bringing awareness to the fact that the sleep patterns people have are not as good as they could be. So let's repair. You said you were like the repairman in the car. Okay, so maybe my left window goes down when I hit the electric button, but the right one doesn't, or the back or the hood doesn't go up or whatever. The point is you're taking all those little things that people have just decided to live with, and you're saying, look at it, your car can run a lot better, and I can show you ways to make it run better, and all I need to do is a few tweaks here and put a couple electrical cords in. Now, I interviewed a guy recently that I really liked. His name was Sage Rader, and he is neuroacrobatics, and it's somatic breathing. So you said, hey, I don't introduce meditation until the third, fourth week. But it's a common practice today for people to, when they're anxious, look at their breathing, right? To take in a deep breath, let it out, take in another deep breath, question it.
I need one right now.
Why? Just from being interviewed by me. So I was going to ask you, are you working with people on sleep habits to actually change their breathing habits, which change their heart rate variability, which would also change all the other functions that are going on? It's just an off-the-wall question for you, Nick, but are you working with people on their sleep, actually looking at their breath?
There's two ways. One that you already know, and one that I just started experimenting with that is so cool. One is obviously the mindfulness meditation stuff.
Right.
Right. That's first and foremost. And we can kind of dial into that a little bit later. The second thing where I'm getting deep breathing is something that I just experimented with a client who kind of didn't do great in his first 2 weeks, kind of didn't follow through with the mini plan that we set out. And Greg, to our earlier conversation, why? Because he was in the perfect trap. If I don't do the activity that we've talked about and then do the one after it, it's not perfect, so I better not do it at all.
Right.
Right. So again, that's still informing our culture big time. So what I did with him was I said, we're gonna use AI right now to customize a routine for you that is short enough that you'll do it, easy enough that your brain knows I can do that, and is going to elicit some of that deep breathing, parasympathetic system, non-anxiety system. So, Greg, I literally shared the screen with him. We pulled up AI, and we started playing with it and going, we started with 5 minutes of mindfulness meditation. I said, hey, why don't we let's bring it down to 3. And then we started putting in things like, give me a 3-part meditation, 1 minute each, that emphasizes deep diaphragmatic breathing and the vagus nerve. And, you know, with some trimming here and there and playing with the AI, we came out with this little 3-minute meditation where the first minute he went outside and he did the traditional part of practicing what I taught him. And he's like, I can do it for a minute. The second was a sun meditation, which he loved because he loved being out in the sun. And the third, as you had talked about earlier, is it was kind of a nice little minute of like they call forest bathing. Have you heard of forest bathing?
Oh yeah.
It was basically like 1 minute forest bathing where it's like, listen to the leaves, listen to this, listen to that. It's only 3 minutes, you know? And it was like, do you think you can handle this for 2 weeks? You know, and we call it, we put down his name. We're like the such and such a name, custom 3-minute morning meditation, you know? So that's where we can even customize all the way down to that even, which is really cool.
Well, you know, in kind of summing up the interview here, because we'll probably invite you back for a part 2, because I know there's a lot more we can talk about. So let's put that on.
Right, you gave me a page and a half of questions.
I know, but we also know that people's attention span is like literally, Nick. We watch the drop off on the podcast where people like, oh, they hit minute 17, 18, 19, 20, and it goes because they can't handle it. So what we're going to do is wrap this one up. We're going to invite you back again for certain, because you've got a lot to let people about. But let's talk about, you know, Sleep Fitness, the book. You know, most people would say, hey, well, that's relatively new. Well, it is relatively new. Well, how do you envision sleep fitness becoming as an integral part of kind of people's lives today? Because we're all wearing one of these, most of us, or we've got some Aura ring or something that we put on and it tells us our sleep is whatever. Well, what needs to happen for the listeners out there to shift for that to basically to occur? Because look, there's a lot of people that don't wear an Aura, don't wear an Apple Watch, don't track their sleep, could give a shit less. And then there's gazillions of people that have bought into all the technology. They're wearing the Aura ring, they got the Apple Watch, they're taking the melatonin, they're doing it. I don't know what it means,
but they're doing it.
But they're doing it because everybody said do it, you're going to sleep more. And they really haven't improved their sleep whatsoever. So in looking at where this is all going, I'm not asking you to be a prognosticator and tell everybody this is what's going to happen. But in your humble opinion, what are the items I could integrate today to improve my sleep, no matter who I am, whether I have the Aura Watch or ring or the Apple Watch or not? And 2, where do you see this headed? 2-part question.
Sure, yeah. So number 1, every sales and marketing meeting I went into for a year and a half all came to the same statement to me. So for those of you who care about business, follow in my opposite example. They were like, you can't name it this. It will fail. No one will know what it is. You are doomed. In a way, they were right. However, because of my personal experience and part, Greg, of that book got put together in that more concise way of like, let's feature 10 things, because I had a friend who at age 40, because of sleep apnea, some insomnia, a little depression, and then led to a cardiac, died. And I realized, oh my God, it's too late. I've been working on Lord of the Rings trilogy on this issue. I need to get something that's faster and gets to people quicker and can educate them about angles and things that are just not in other sleep books. And if I could write it thinking of him reading it, would it be helpful? And so I think the sleep fitness part became, it's not a copyrighted term or whatever, but I just basically looked at our history, right? Medical doctors were like, Jesus, obesity and sleep health has gotten out of control. We need help. What happened, Greg? We have physical trainers. We got clothing stores. We got Lululemon. We got every fitness program ready to take your money and put you on a cycler. I mean, we've got a serious industry that's totally built out as a secondary industry because the medical profession really can support the demand of the problems. So I don't really care, honestly, if sleep fitness is a word that dies. It's just a word that I think denotes and suggests that there's a possibility for things like, I have friends in research, right, who they're like, oh yeah, the guys who do research down in the sports center, they're connected to these guys who are on the teams, and they have these research questions, and then they test them for 6 months. Greg, that does not exist in the sleep community.
Mm-hmm.
It's not there. So we really, to me, if we're going to solve the problem, A, we need something that unifies the idea in a way that makes sense to our culture, and then also would make it so people who do have power or a special gift can partner and connect with other people to create solutions that, to your earlier question, where's this all going? Only they know, like that's for the future to behold.
Well, one of the things the listeners can do, Nick, is right now they can go to your website at sleepfitnesscoach.com. The cool thing about Nick's website is you can get it in the nighttime view or the daytime view, which he's got it right there. So depending on what your whatever suits your fancy, you can actually go and do a coaching session with him. And you can sign up right there on there. You can read more about the book. He's got sleep trainings, which is the touch-up, the Sleep Fitness 101 training program. And then he calls it Limited and Selective Full Immersion Week, which would be the in-person, I guess, in Boston. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I used to have an Airbnb that was completely retrofitted for sleep, but my neighbor wrecked it.
Oh, okay. So
that's why for your listeners, half listen to Greg. Something happened to my website. I'm going to send him my links. My home is at LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I did want to mention that for between now and the end of 2024, if I'm just offering people free sleep assessments, so I'll get referrals and get on a call with someone. And it's just like, let's talk about what your options are. And they might have nothing to do with me, but I like to leave them with a mini little strategy going forward. So please, at LinkedIn, definitely track me down if you just want to have a conversation. And I can't help everybody, Greg. I had a guy a couple of weeks ago who has restless leg syndrome genetically since he was a child. This is a very ignored subject matter, and I, of course, have done my best to help him, but I don't have an option and an answer for him totally, because this is really uncharted territory. And then the last thing I would say is with the sleep fitness book, one of the stronger feedback points was how much time it saved people. Like I got several comments of like, oh, geez, I'm glad I read that chapter because it saved me 2.5 hours of thinking this when I really only needed to do this. So it's a definite time saver, that's for sure.
Well, one of the things I look at is your reviews on Amazon. This book's only been out since May. You have all these reviews, and literally you've got 5-star ratings. So you did something right with this book. And I'm going to read just a quote from a lady who had insomnia. And she says, as somebody who battled with restless sleep for years, I appreciated that the author, drawing from personal struggles and extensive academic research, provides a freshly realistic approach to sleep. Instead of offering cookie-cutter solutions, this book delves into the complexities of sleep issues, emphasizing that there is no universal remedy. The personalized approach resonates deeply, especially when traditional methods have consistently fallen short. So, people like that are writing this time and time again about you, Nick, congratulations, because these are great testimonials for people out there that are thinking about and having a restless night. Definitely go get this book. Go check out his website. Check him out on LinkedIn as well. We'll put him there. We're also going to do a volume 2 of this. We'll have Nick back on again to discuss, as he said, he held up the questions, some of those other questions that we didn't get to.
But how hard Greg was on me. He was so hard on me that once I thought I was ready, I flipped the page over and was like, There's a question 12? Oh my goodness. But I think
I love you, Nick. You did a great job today, and I appreciate it. Any last words for the listeners before we actually truncate our call here?
Yeah, I think one thing that I just go back to is that education part. So if you don't do anything else, something that I started and it's free on LinkedIn is a newsletter called the Energy and Sleep newsletter. And it's been a really helpful source for people to get current information, and it's free and it comes to your email box. So definitely sign up there and check it out. It's just a free resource. And I do put a lot of time and thought into it and do special features and whatnot like that. So I think, for everybody, it's really about learning and getting caught up with some of this. And to your point originally with some of those testimonials, the same with some social media posts that blew up, Greg. I can see now that people, at least in the States, they're tired of going, okay, Greg, here's our book on the sleep prescription, 7 days to unlocking your best rest. This author is going to sue me now. And the fact is, Greg, you probably don't fit into box 1. You don't fit into box 3 with the arrows all pointing to all these things. Right? And so I think the thing this year, I think 2 things that I walked away this year was, 1, wow, people are sick of being put in boxes and they want to be treated like people. And the second thing is, for those listeners who are like, oh, my sleep's okay, you're selling yourself so short.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
That's old sleep thinking. I've had to spend more time this year convincing people who will even come back to me a year later and be like, I'm ready. But they needed to hear, like, Greg, it's okay if you're I can't get you a new job. I can't get you an extra $75,000, but I can give you a capacity for energy in your life that enriches the quality of your life, that you enjoy more, that you feel more engaged in. And that alone is worth the trip.
Well, Nick, I would just tell people this is an old little cliche. If you're tired of being tired, okay, go to Nick's website. I know that so many people, they'll say, how you doing? They'll go, oh, I'm tired. It's like, no, you don't want to answer I'm tired, because then you're programming the subconscious as well. So go see Nick. Go get this book. Hey, buddy, we'll have you back on again for volume 2. Thanks for this time. Namaste. I know this is a Eastern tradition, and maybe for all of you, it doesn't freak out any of my guests because they know me. Thank you, Namaste, for being on Inside Personal Growth. It was a great podcast. Take care, Nick.
Yeah, you too, Greg. That was really my honor.
Thank you for listening to this podcast on Inside Personal Growth. We appreciate your support. And for more information about new podcasts, please go to InsidePersonalGrowth.com or any of your favorite channels to listen to our podcast. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.